Hello, and welcome to this session of Talking Tech Women and Girls in ICT. My name is Beatriz, and today I'm delighted to be representing the BBC. And I'm really excited to have a discussion with Margaux Joffe about technology and careers path. Margaux works with Verizon Media and she takes care of the accessibility and corporate social responsibility. And she's also the founder of a Kaleidoscope Society, among other projects that we will discuss today. But before we go to that, let me give you a bit of context. Talking Tech is a series celebrating girls and women in tech being recorded around the world between Girls in ICT Day 2020 and Girls in ICT Day 2021. Girls in ICT Day is an international day marked on the fourth Thursday of each April. The goal of this chat is to help to create a global environment that empowers and encourages girls and young women to consider studies and careers in the growing field of information and communication technologies. The Talking Tech series is brought to you by the ITU and the UNICC and is in support of the Global Partnership for Gender Equality in the Digital Age. As mentioned, one of the main goals of this series is to offer diverse examples of how ICT is being used today in order to inspire young women to follow a career in the ICT path. So let's go to our interview. Hello, Margaux. Welcome to the session. Thank you for being here today with me.
Hi, Beatrice. It's great to be here.
As a start, tell me a bit about yourself. What's your current job?
My name is Margaux Joffe. My pronouns are she and her, and I'm joining you today from San Francisco. And I have my little dog, Cody, by my feet. And I currently work for Verizon in their corporate social responsibility team. And my role is really focused on accessibility. So, looking at how we make sure our products and services are accessible to people with disabilities. And also, how can we apply technology to solve some pressing issues in society today? And outside of my day job, I also volunteer with Kaleidoscope Society, which is a community that I founded for women with ADHD. And I also serve on the board of directors for the American Association of People with Disabilities.
That's brilliant. Is this something you've always done, or where did you start it and how have you got there?
Yeah, it was definitely a journey. In college, I wanted to be a photojournalist or a documentary filmmaker and use media to tell stories to change the world and have a positive impact on society. And I had a job when I was in college managing our multimedia project studio, which was basically the computer lab. So I was really interested in media technology and I taught myself all the different softwares and would teach other students as well. And my biggest challenge at the time was I couldn't pick one thing to focus on because I really loved design, I loved photography, I loved documentary studies, I loved film. And when I got out of school, that's when I learned about the role of a producer, which is that you basically get to be the project manager for the creative process. So you get to touch all the different aspects of the creative process and work with designers and writers and developers to basically bring an idea to life. And I really loved that because I got to work with so many talented creative people and basically bring campaigns and projects to life. So that's really what I did for the first chapter of my career, is work as a producer. And I really loved that. And I got to produce such a wide variety of projects, everything from public health campaigns for the city of Boston to big marketing campaigns for brands such as Toyota, Canon, Uniqlo. And that's how I got into tech at Yahoo. Was I got a job in production.
Really interesting. Do you think there is a specific thing or moment that made you change your career to what you were doing more related to production and so more into accessibility and working with this other group of people?
Definitely. I think it was about 5 years ago. I had got my first tech job working at Yahoo. I was really excited. And then on the side, I was volunteering with Kaleidoscope Society, a community for women with ADHD, because that's something that I had struggled with myself. And so I was working in tech, but it wasn't something that I shared at work. I didn't share that I had ADHD because there's a lot of stigma in workplaces around disability, around mental health, around neurodiversity. And then I remember one day I was at my computer working and I got an email notification from Teen Vogue that they had written an article about Kaleidoscope Society. And the headline read, Kaleidoscope Society is smashing stigma for women and girls with ADHD. And I was so shocked. I was so proud. I wanted to like stand up and scream and run around and tell all my friends at work, wow, like Teen Vogue wrote an article about us. And it was so meaningful to me because it meant that we were really out there. We were really making a difference in people's lives, and that was being recognized. And then I remembered, oh, no one at work knows that I have ADHD. No one knows that I do this advocacy in the community. And I really felt a little bit like a fraud. I felt that I wasn't being genuine because I was an advocate for empowering women with ADHD. But then when I came to work, I didn't talk about that or share that. I kind of hid that part of who I was. And it was in that moment I decided I want to help other people like myself. I wanted to help dispel stigma in the workplace and really create a more inclusive environment so every employee can feel safe to be themselves and they don't have to be afraid of hiding whatever it is that they're dealing with in their personal life, because everyone's dealing with something. And that motivated me to start the tech industry's first neurodiversity employee resource group. And in 2 years, we were able to build a global network of support for employees in over 12 offices around the world. And it was a really transformative experience. And through that experience, I realized I really want to take my skills and my background and apply it to focus full-time on accessibility and creating a more accessible workplace and society.
I think it's so brave that you decided to do that. I'm really happy that it happened to you. So after that point, you were, this is me and this is what I have to give to all of you guys. That's really, really nice. How do you think being a woman has affected your career? Have you experienced any differences between you and male colleagues?
I think that it was more challenging when I was starting my career because I felt that I wasn't taken as seriously and I felt I had more pressure to prove myself. Thankfully, I've had a lot of amazing women bosses and mentors over the years. And so I've been really lucky to have learned from a lot of powerful women over my career that I've been able to hear their experiences. And that's given me strength and that's given me guidance. So I'm really appreciative for all my role models and mentors. You know, I think when I was younger, definitely some challenges. And I think the most disappointing part is when I did have some male colleagues who I thought were praising me because of the quality of my work. And then there was a couple disappointing experiences where I realized they had different intentions.
How have you learned to deal with these situations at the time?
As I've gotten older and progressed in my career, it's easier just in general because you kind of find your voice, you find your style of how you work, and you just build your confidence over time. So I think that as I've gotten older, it's gotten easier as I'm more confident in myself and my abilities. But the other lesson I learned was women, we are socialized and we are brought up from a young age with this idea that we need to be liked and that being nice and being liked is really the priority. And traditionally, boys are brought up with this idea that they need to win. And that's one of the main distinctions just in terms of typically how we're raised. And so one of the lessons I learned in the workplace was it's more important to be respected than to be liked. And so I've practiced that over the years because I used to be a people pleaser and I used to just want to be liked and make everyone happy. But at the end of the day, people want you to state your recommendation. They want you for your expertise. They don't want you to just say what they want to hear when you're in the workplace. So I've shifted my intention from being liked to now I aim to be respected. I aim to add value to everything I work on. And knowing that there are some times where you have to have difficult conversations or you have to deliver information that people don't want to hear. And that's just part of the job.
Yeah, it's really important, as you said, that we change the values we are grown up with because we find a job surrounded by male people and it's so different the way we behave and the way they behave. And as you said, we can face some problems internally, like who I am, what do I want from the others, and what do I want in my job as a person. I really hope things change and we make things change to change. What are the things you like the most and the least from your job?
I really love working at Verizon because there's so many really smart people there. And I feel like every day I'm learning something and I really respect and admire my colleagues that I get to work with. And the other thing that I love about my job is I feel like it's really meaningful. I get to focus on working and collaborating with many teams across the company to make our technology, our products, our services accessible for our customers with disabilities. And that's really important to me because everyone deserves to be able to access and use all the products and services that are out there. There's a billion people in the world who live with some type of disability. And in the United States, where I live, 35% of US households have at least one family member with a disability. So this is such a large and valuable community. And so for me, accessibility, it's more than compliance. It's not charity. This is a competitive advantage. This is something that businesses, I believe, should be thinking about in terms of how they're serving all their customers. So I feel that my work is meaningful, and that gives me the sense of purpose when I get up in the morning, feeling like I'm working to help advance this cause.
Brilliant. So the thing you find the most difficult, or the thing you like the least about it, what would you say?
For me, there's so much I want to do, and there's only 24 hours in the day. So that's really, for me, is always the challenge of practicing patience and knowing that I can't boil the ocean overnight, and just really being careful not to fall into workaholism, because I think in my career, that's something that in the past has been more of a challenge for me, is not being able to set those healthy boundaries and wanting to work all the time. So for people that are passionate about what they do, sometimes it can be hard to turn that off and to make sure you're taking time for your personal life and for yourself. So that's been, for me in my career journey, something that I've worked on over the years.
Yes, it's really important knowing how to switch it off, really. And we've mentioned a bit your Kaleidoscope Society. Is there any other activity beyond your job that you do or you like to do?
Yeah, lots of things. I see behind you, there's an avocado plant. And I know we were talking the other day because I think yours is 1 year old.
Yeah,
So
1 year, 2 months, 3 months, maybe.
I have one, it's 6 months old, and I planted the seed when the lockdown started for COVID. And so I know we bonded over that, but I love gardening. I have a dog, and we like going to the beach. That's one of our favorite hobbies. I love salsa dancing, which I can't do so much anymore right now during COVID, but I hope soon that we'll be able to. And I just started volunteering with another organization called Built by Girls, which is actually part of Verizon's company, but it's a really cool mentoring program for young people that are getting into tech.
Brilliant. Could you tell us a bit more about your Kaleidoscope Society and what's your role there nowadays, that you can combine it with your job in Verizon?
Yeah, so I actually wasn't diagnosed with ADHD until I was 29. So I lived almost 3 decades of my life without this information about how my mind worked. And that was really challenging for me, because I thought that the challenges that I was facing, I thought it was really just my fault, that I was being lazy, that I was doing something wrong. And so getting that diagnosis when I was 29 really helped me in my career, because I now had this new information about how my brain worked and that I was wired differently than everyone else. And so just being able to forgive myself and also design my life moving forward. But what I learned was that my experience wasn't unique, and that up to 75% of women with ADHD go undiagnosed until adulthood. And that because of the stigma, millions of women were suffering and struggling in silence. And I wanted to do something to try and help other women like me, and to create role models for the next generation, so that other people that were diagnosed with ADHD, they would have a community and they could find empowering stories of other women who had the same condition. So that's the backstory about Kaleidoscope Society. It's an online website, and we highlight stories of trailblazing women in a variety of fields, and they share their ADHD experience. And so that's really what the project's been about. And I started it just based on my experience, but it's been really rewarding to hear from hundreds of other women who have visited the site and have said it's really helped them feel like they're not alone in what they're going through. I really dream of the day when we have dispelled stigma in society, and having ADHD, dyslexia, autism, any of these neurodivergent conditions, it's no longer something to be ashamed of, but it's something that is accepted, and everyone can feel valued for who they are.
Yeah, again, I think it's brilliant that you've created this network of people, and especially women struggling with the same thing. And I was really shocked when you told me this 75% of women that are not really diagnosed. And I cannot really imagine how bad it has to be living your life thinking, I got a problem. So thinking about your biggest challenge along your way, do you think, is it related with ADHD, or which one do you think it is?
I think the undiagnosed ADHD was definitely a challenge for me. And the two traps that I fell into the trap of perfectionism and workaholism, because I would work so much harder to try and make sure that everything was perfect and there was no mistakes. And because of my ADHD, I felt like I was working 3 times harder than everyone else. But I didn't have the awareness, the understanding, the strategies, or the tools to know at the time. And so, like I said, once I was diagnosed, that really, really helped me to learn about my brain and learn how I work and be able to build on my strengths. And so that was really helpful for me in my career. So I think that was my biggest career challenge, was basically starting the first 10 years of my career with undiagnosed ADHD. So I'm just really thankful that I was able to get a diagnosis and to now have that knowledge that is helping me.
It's brilliant that you got to make a change. The thing you thought it was your weaknesses, now it's the thing that makes you stronger.
I don't believe in strengths and weaknesses. I just believe in strengths and gaps. Everybody has a unique gift to share with the world. Everyone has things that they're amazing at. Everyone has their own strengths. And then we all have our gaps, or the things that we're not strong at. But instead of trying to fix our weaknesses, it's best to focus on our strengths, but then know about your weaknesses or gaps so you can partner with people who are good at those things. And I think that's something I've also learned over the years. And I'm a big fan of Strength Finders, which is basically an assessment that you can take that tells you your top strengths. And then there's some coaching around how you can use those strengths in the workplace and in your personal life.
Actually, I was having a conversation with a friend from my work, and she told me the same thing, that she've learned that it's really better for you in general as a person to focus on the things you know how to do. So as you said, your strengths. So yeah, that's definitely a lesson to learn from it.
Yeah, that's one of my questions that's going to come to you later, is I want to hear about your strengths and how you're using that in your career so far.
Well, first of all, a bit of myself. I work as a broadcasting engineer trainee, which means I'm doing a 2 years program inside the BBC, and I'm getting trained as a broadcast engineer. Talking about my strengths, I would say I can bring my personal strengths to my job. So I think I consider myself an empathetic person, and I think in this situation, for example, with COVID and everyone having a different battle, I think it's really important to be able to listen to the people, trying to understand what they are dealing with and giving them the best of you in whatever the way it is. Like maybe you just need to have a 5 minute chat with them, and that's already enough for them. That's the thing I'm happy with of myself. And I'm also very persistent. So if I know I want something, I will work until I get there. But sometimes it can be a bit bad, like not really a positive thing, but a negative thing. So I need to measure how much I put and how much I'm going to get for that.
That's so great. And I think it's such a great time to have empathy as one of your leading strengths, because I remember even 10 or 15 years ago, empathy and sensitivity, it wasn't necessarily seen as a strength. And a lot of the messages that I heard was, you need to be tough, don't be so sensitive, don't be emotional. These are the messages that I heard. And now you see many articles around empathy as one of the top leadership skills. And I remember when Harvard Business School, they were teaching business leaders on how to be more empathetic. So I think that there's a growing understanding that empathy is actually a really important skill for leadership and in the workplace.
Yeah, this is definitely something I've been experiencing in all these months working from home. And we learned that it's so easy to help the others in these times, because people can be so isolated from the world, really, by not having to go to the office. And things as easy as having a chat with them or asking about themselves, like, how do you feel? Not about this job, like, how do you feel about your personal life as much as they can talk about it. It can make the day better.
So I know that you are from Spain and you recently took this new role at the BBC. Congratulations. That's really exciting. And now you're living in London. So I was curious, how is that transition for you? What are you enjoying about London? How is this experience going for you?
Well, definitely now I'm enjoying less things than I did some months ago because of this COVID situation. What I liked of London is the variety of opportunities you have, not only about your job and your career, but also about cultural and social life. So I really like working for the BBC because it's a really big place where you can meet really, really different people. And I really like that. But it's also like if you want to do anything. So for example, you are seeing my keyboard. I'm really into music and theater in general. So if you want to go and watch anything, it's really close to you. As you said, I'm from Spain and I'm from a really small city, which I really like, but it's really small. So at some point, it's a bit too small for some of these things. So I knew I wanted to leave Spain maybe for some years and try something else in a bigger place, different place.
So I do notice that you have a keyboard here, and I know you have a love for music. So could you tell us a little bit about that? And was there a moment or a time when you knew that you wanted to have a career in broadcasting?
I started studying music when I was 8 years old. I actually started studying piano and then I moved to singing. So I think for my career, I didn't know what I wanted to do exactly, but I knew I wanted to follow something that could be a combination of both of them. So my bachelor is in industrial electronics, which is really far from broadcasting. But with broadcasting, I found that combination I was looking for. So even if I do a bit of TV, a bit of radio, a bit of IT in general, I find my love for music or for sound, like radio, like live programs, I find that it's combined with the technology. So for example, now I need to understand what's the radio chain from, for example, when a program gets produced on a studio until the moment when people or when the program reach people's houses. So I really found like a perfect balance between what I like in my personal life, which is music, with my interest for the technology.
It sounds like the perfect blend of the art and the science.
Yeah, I mean, of course, you will find things you don't like or that are more difficult to what you really expected. But so far, I'm really happy with this path.
I know you've been at the BBC. Can you tell me a story, one lesson you've learned so far?
I think the most important lesson I've learned in this 1 year I've been now with them is that the opportunities are out there, but they're not going to be waiting for you. So if you want something, you need to chase it and go for that. So if you know what you want, just go for it and put your effort and your time and your dedication on that, and you'll get there. But they're not going to come to you to give you what you want. So you will need to fight a bit, but you'll get there.
That's a great lesson. I remember one of my first managers told me, closed mouths don't get fed. Closed mouths don't get fed. And her words always stuck with me because I remember that to what you were saying, which is you have to ask for what you want and let it be known because people don't necessarily know what your goals are, what you're trying to do. So it definitely is on all of us to take ownership of our careers.
Related as what you said before, what is it being a woman in a big company or in the engineering world? Sometimes I also felt not really confident with myself. Do I need to ask for this or do I have access to this thing? And I think one of the reasons for that was that I'm young or definitely younger than some of my colleagues. And another reason is that I'm a woman. So I think it has also impacted my career in that way. So I think it's really inspiring having this chat with you now, learning from what you learned with your experience. I hope I can learn from it and take it with me.
So, what's next for you? Do you have any specific goals or big dreams for someday you want to be doing XYZ? Do you have anything in mind?
Actually, no. Now I'm doing my internship in a department called Engineering Operations, and that department takes care of all the studios in the BBC, like radio and TV studios. I find it really interesting because you can learn a lot about all the systems we use there. So I think I might use it as a starting point, and once I know where I want to go next, I can just easier, or I think more easier, move to my next step. Yeah, I don't know. Definitely, I think it's need to be in relation with music or sound. So maybe that's radio, but I'm not really sure yet, to be fair.
Do you have a favorite song that you like to play or sing, or a favorite piece that you like to perform?
No, please, not today.
I'm putting you on the spot with my questions.
I didn't expect that. No, actually, my keyboard, this is going to be like really bad excuse. So it's not a keyboard, it's a controller. I think I'm turning red now. It's a controller, which means I need to plug it into my laptop to get any sound out of it. So maybe next time I'll think of something.
Yeah. So as you're starting out your career, have you ran into any challenges or roadblocks? What have been a challenge for you?
Well, I would mention two things. One thing is working from home. For example, when I was a student, I wasn't able of studying at home with my family really, because first of all, if I had a bed next to me, I wouldn't be on the desk. So it was really difficult for me to find the focus and the attention on my studies. So having to spend such a long time from home, it's been really, really difficult. So I've learned to make a difference between what's my life in my room and what's my job, or the work I have to do as part of my job in my room, and just to make a difference. For example, now I'm using a folding desk instead of a fixed desk, because as soon as I finish the job or my work for the day, I can fold it, put it away. So I'm done. Otherwise, I was working 24 hours a day, because at my previous place, I was working in the same table where I was having lunch or dinner. So it was really, really hard for me to disconnect from one and the other. And also, one thing that I've learned with this situation, and I think I'm doing better now, is having chats via Zoom. Having a video conference was something that was really, really hard for me. I would avoid it. I would shake. I would, my voice would be off. So I think because of COVID as well, that's been something I could work on. I feel proud of that.
Wow, I wouldn't even have guessed. So it seems like you must have been doing a lot of practice. And I know that this time has put us all out of our comfort zones in different ways.
Yeah, so related to that, how has COVID-19 affected your job or your career in that way?
I feel very lucky because I've been able to continue working and continue my job working remotely from my house. So I feel really, really fortunate. And I'm really proud because Verizon, when COVID hit, Verizon made a really intentional effort to not lay anyone off. And
Mhm.
so they actually did this upskilling and reskilling initiative to basically reskill thousands of Verizon employees so that they could keep everyone working at the company. And so I think Verizon has done a really great job through this transition with COVID, just in terms of how they're running the company. So I really respect that. And then for my role specifically, it's really important now more than ever to think about people with disabilities, because during COVID, we need to make sure that important health information is reaching everyone. And so that means that we need to make sure health information on websites and on the news, all of that is accessible. So whether that's having closed captioning, sign language interpreters, making sure there's alt text on images on the website, that people who are blind can navigate all of these
Mhm.
websites. Or just examples like that. We really need to, so often, unfortunately, the disability community is left behind or is an afterthought, especially during times of emergencies or public health pandemics like this one. So I know that the accessibility teams have continued working really hard during the pandemic to make sure that as we adjust our business, that we are keeping our customers with disabilities in mind and making sure that they have access to all the same information as everyone else.
That's really, really good. We are so lucky that we can still do our jobs, and that we are finding also new challenges that we can overcome to make life better for others. So that's one of the positive things of this situation, I'd say.
I mean, it's definitely a challenging time, and it can feel, at least for me, can feel very isolating. I miss seeing people, even
Mhm.
though I'm kind of introverted, but I do like seeing my colleagues in person and just being out and about in the mix of life. It definitely has been stressful.
A final question for you. So since this series is about girls and women in technology, do you have any advice you would like to give them, like the new generation of women following this path?
Yes. Actually, I have three pieces of advice. Number one, I would say is when it comes to networking, think about networking horizontally, not just vertically. And what I mean by that is, I know when I was starting out my career, I felt a pressure to, be networking with like women that were very senior or in higher level roles. And I wasn't taught the value of networking with the people on my own level, my peers. And I think this is a piece of advice I would share is, just building relationships with people that are even in the same level as you, because in 5 years down the road, in 10 years down the road, you're all going to be further along and then you're all going to be able to help each other. And I've seen that in my own life where I have former colleagues and now I'm working in this area and they're over here doing something really cool. And now we're able to collaborate. So I think that's really important. The second piece of advice I would give is around imposter syndrome. So have you heard of this term, imposter syndrome?
I think so. So is that what you don't believe what you really are and you think you are a fraud, be considering yourself below what you actually are. Is it right?
Yes, that's a good summary of it. Basically, feeling that you are an imposter and you're not actually good at what you're doing, even though you are good at what you're doing. And I don't think that term was even really a thing when I started out in my career, but I remember for a really long time, I felt like I was just pretending or I was faking it, but I actually did know what I was doing. And this is something that a lot of people feel. Almost everyone at some point in their career is going to feel some level of imposter syndrome. So I would just say if you're ever doubting yourself or you have a moment where you're questioning your abilities, just know that everyone has those feelings at certain times. It's totally normal. And just give yourself a little pep talk. So that's what I would say there. And then lastly, the third piece of advice is take your time and enjoy the journey. I know this sounds cliche and you always hear, enjoy the journey. Success is not a destination, it's the journey, but it's really true. I think I have so many fond memories from some of my early jobs when I was just starting out. And I think when I just started out my career, I was always focused on what's the next step, what's the next level, how can I grow to the next thing. And so now I'm really focused on just enjoying where I'm at and really taking in the experience. So yeah, I would just say every step of the journey, just enjoy it and build your skills, ask questions, don't be afraid to ask questions and just continue learning as much as you can and really just take it one step at a time. Don't feel like you have to have everything figured out because the secret is no one has everything figured out. Not even CEOs, not even the top level executives. No one has their whole life and their whole career figured out. It's always a journey for everyone. And that's something that I've learned.
I think that's really important. And that's definitely something I should apply to myself because I'm always like, okay, I know I'll be doing, for example, this work in this placement for 3 months, but what else? And really try my best to apply that to myself. Thank you for that. I think that was all for today. Thank you, Margaux. Like really, thanks a lot for today. I really enjoyed our talk today. I hope you feel the same.
Yeah, thank you. It was so fun having this conversation. We're gonna have to check in 6 months to see if my avocado plant is as big as yours.
We will definitely. Okay, thank you so much. And thank you to the audience for watching. Bye bye. Thank you.